absolutely delighted today to be joined by award-winning author Ole Dammegard. Ole's going to be talking about his book, Coup d'etat in Slow Motion. Now, it's not just any old book, but an impeccable study of one of the biggest murder investigations in modern history. The official version of the assassination of Olof Palme, Sweden's Prime Minister, is that a lone nut shot and killed him for no apparent reason. But what was claimed to be the deed of a madman has turned out to have its roots deep within the international military complex and the world's financial institutions at the very highest level, all sanctioned locally from behind impenetrable veils of secrecy. What Ole's suggesting here, based on his deep meticulous research, is an international conspiracy the size of the one behind the JFK assassination. Ole Dammegard, welcome to New Dimensions TV.
Thank you so much, Richard. It's a real pleasure to be on.
Ole, it's great to have you on the show, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. Coup d'etat in Slow Motion is a great book. It's really well put together, and it would make a great Hollywood film. It's got everything. Secret agents, right-wing Nazi police officers, professional assassins, and of course, innocent scapegoats. If it wasn't for the fact that this event actually happened, you'd think it was penned by Robert Ludlum, author of The Bourne Identity. But it did happen. It's explosive, and I'd like you to take our viewers through the events as they unfold in this story, Ole. Over to you.
Well, thank you, Richard. Well, just like you say, it's an absolutely incredible story that I had no idea when it happened, that I had absolutely no idea where this would lead me. The thing is, I was born in Denmark in a family that was very much involved in the resistance movement against the Nazi occupation during the Second World War. And I grew up with all these stories about how important it is to stand up for what is true and right, even though you might be, like Gandhi said, in the minority. Even if you're in a minority of one, the truth is still the truth. And when I was a boy, we moved to Sweden. I grew up there, and when I was a young man, I started working as a reporter at a local newspaper. So this gave me a very good education in how to ask questions and how to look upon things critically, not just buying into the official version. And over the years, while I was working as a journalist, for some reason, I'm not really sure why, but I became extremely interested in the JFK assassination. It was especially I think it was in the early 80s when the first time I saw the so-called Zapruder film, which is the film where there's a bystander who actually filmed the whole assassination of JFK, and where you see the last final headshot where Kennedy is hit from the front and to the right, and his whole head explodes. I mean, it's an awful footage. But this footage showed very clearly that the one firing the final headshot was standing to the front and to the right of the car, because his head was thrown backwards and to the left. And this was totally contrary to the official story, which claimed that there was a one sole assassin, there was only one guy, and that he was sitting up and behind to the right in a building up and to the right, which would have made the head be thrown forward and to the left. So it was very obvious that it was a lie, that the official story was a lie, and I got very confused, and I thought, how on earth, this is like 20 years after the assassination and we're still being told a story that a child could understand right away is a total lie. So this made me very confused and also very determined to see if I could find out what the real truth was behind it. At that point, I had no idea that this would lead me down a very dark road for 30 years of my life. And the deeper I got into this assassination, the more confused I got, because there were so many books that seemed very trustworthy that were describing, for instance, that there was this mob figure that were involved in the assassination. Then another book was talking about the exact same person, but as one of the employees by the CIA. Then a third book was talking about the exact same person as being paid by the FBI, and also sometimes working for the Secret Service. And I thought, well, somebody must be lying, because I mean, it just can't be true. But I was in for a big surprise, because what I found out over the years of deep research was that it was actually possible that the very same person could be working for the CIA, doing work for the mob, being paid by the FBI, and sometimes doing extra things for the Secret Service and so on. So it was a very, very confusing time until I started to see that the CIA and the mob were actually like two sides of the same coin, and very often sponsored and financed and supported by the FBI. Very confusing, because what I was brought up with believing were the good guys suddenly turned out to be involved in very, very dark and sinister agendas. So I actually started, for my own sake, to write a book on it, on the JFK assassination, which was like 800 or 900 pages, just trying to keep all of these different layers apart, because it's so extremely complex, this assassination, done by design to confuse people from finding the real truth. And then in 1986, the Swedish Prime Minister was gunned down in the streets of Stockholm. And once again, we were told that it was the deed of a lone crazy guy. And at that point, since I had grown up in Sweden, I thought I lived in the perfect country, a true democracy where there was no corruption, where you could trust the police, that everything was the way it should be. But once again, my God, was I in for a big surprise, because it turned out that over the years, what I found is that there's almost like a template being used when they carry out these top assassinations. And so when you look at an assassination like the JFK, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and so on, they follow almost like a bullet point list. Not exactly how they're carried out, but the way it's covered up, the way that the different parts, like innocent patsy who's going to be blamed for it. There's an investigation that is totally there to cover everything up, followed up by different commissions that will just bury the whole thing over the years, bury it, so that in the end we won't even bother looking into it. And every single time, the orders come from very, very high up in the power pyramid, the global power pyramid, and entangled down into the very foggy corridors of power, so that it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to find out who actually gave the order for the assassinations. And even the people on the street level that carry them out have absolutely no idea where the order comes from. They just do their job and that's it. They are skilled in mechanics and they're good at killing. That's what they do. They get paid and they shut up, or they get killed then as well. So when this happened in Sweden, I was totally convinced that within a few months the Swedish police will have tracked down the killer and case closed, sorted. The guy would be taken and he would be put away. And even though it's a massive trauma and tragedy for Sweden, at least it would be solved in a good way and so on. But once again, wow, was I in for a major surprise, because after a while, it turned out that the events in Sweden were following the exact same bullet points that the other major assassinations had followed. So when I compared the different cases, since it was like 20 years since the JFK assassination and Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King, so because that was more than 20 years ago, then I could see, okay, the next points on that template would be dup, this is what they did in these cases. If the thing in Sweden followed the same list, then this would be the next thing, whatever that was. I can't remember that. Maybe they would find another trail or track or evidence type of thing. But I said, if it follows the same, then this is what will happen next. Within a few weeks, boom, there it was, in Sweden. Absolutely, it blew my mind away, because I thought, oh my God, how is it possible that a murder in Sweden can follow the exact same template if they're not connected? And how on earth can they be connected? So I moved to Stockholm. I quit my job. I did everything to be on site there. I looked up everyone that knew about the case. I found witnesses. I joined a small group that was called the Private Investigators, just a private group of people, former police officers, lawyers, very concerned citizens that was deeply hurt by what had happened in Sweden, because there was something very ugly that had taken place, with most people not even understanding what was going on. And so the more I dug into this, in the beginning, I thought it was a simple case. I thought it was just a matter of finding the killer and that's it. But it just got into layers and layers and layers of very, very strange circumstances. I started finding out a lot of the witnesses that was killed. I found journalists that was suicided. I found police officers, people that started talking too much. There were like death everywhere around this whole case. So it got quite scary for me, but I was very determined, and together with this small group of people, we did everything we could to find out the truth and do what the police was actually supposed to do, but were not doing, because it was very obvious from an early point that the Swedish police were just pointing everywhere else than towards the truth. They were just pointing at the patsy, the patsy, the patsy. And when they couldn't blame or nail the first patsy, they just exchanged him. And in the end, the poor bugger that was taken to trial and sentenced for it, his name was Christer Pettersson, totally innocent guy. When they got him in prison, but then he was released afterwards. But the whole media, everybody was just chasing this poor guy, and it was like a witch hunt. And in the end, he was murdered as well. They say that he had an epileptic seizure, but actually he was hit with something hard in the head, and his skull was cracked, and he died like that. So this, like I say, I was just an ordinary guy. For some reason, very, very interested and almost obsessed in finding out the real truth, because the truth is the one that liberates us. And when people lie to us, when people lie to me, when people are getting hurt and beaten up and killed even, then it really, really upsets me. And I just felt somebody needs to do it. If the authorities are not doing it, which was very clear that they were not, then I had to do it. And this is what I've spent 30 years of my life doing. And here we are now together with you and on your show, with the result being my book Coup d'etat in slow motion, which is I put it's almost 1,100 pages, and it includes everything, every single little piece of the puzzle, including photos, names, maps, documents, testimonies of the people involved, of the assassin himself, his handwritten letters, the whole thing about how this is so extremely connected with so much of awful atrocities, assassinations and mayhem on this beautiful globe that we live on.
When people start to get too close to the truth in situations like this, Ollie, they run the risk of getting hurt, or in some cases much worse. What effect and consequences did this have on you and your family?
Well, what you say is absolutely true, and when I started out, I had absolutely no idea about the risks involved, because I just started looking into this as a private person, as a sort of like a journalist, trying to find out what actually happened. But the deeper I got into it and the more involved I got with other people, especially this small group of so-called private investigators, the more I just started to discover how many people that had actually been killed in Sweden around the assassination. And also when I compared to other assassinations like the JFK, Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy, I mean, the people that have given up their lives are in the hundreds, absolutely in the hundreds. I heard There was one man, a statistic, who he said that the chances, he had made the calculations, and he had said that the chances to die young, if you were anywhere or in any way involved with the JFK assassination as a witness or in the investigation or somehow had connection to this assassination, the chances for you dying young was 1 trillion higher than an ordinary person. So it's not being paranoid to understand that there are very high stakes in this game. And in my case, unfortunately, I had two of my friends who are no longer with us. One of them ended up with a smashed-in skull in a subway station, and the other one had a very, very violent cancer that killed him very quickly. And it's not me that say that these two were homicides, but it was a very high-ranking police officer who did the investigation and who labeled both of them murders. So at that time, I thought this is getting scary. Also, I had visits in my home where somebody broke in there. They opened my lock. They went into my apartment, and what they do when they try to scare you off is they go in and they rearrange things in your apartment so that the message will be very clear to you that they can get to you at any time or whenever they want to get to you. But if you try and call the authorities and say that, well, somebody was in my apartment rearranging my furniture, putting books on the books and so on, it would just sound totally ridiculous and nobody would believe you. So this is why they do it like this. And in my case, somebody had gotten into my apartment when I was not there. I noticed that my bookshelves had been pulled out and pushed back because everything had moved to the right in the shelves. Also, I noticed that somebody had gone through my papers, and my toothbrush was put with the cutlery in the kitchen. And also there was a photo that my brother took just after the assassination of Olof Palme, where it's all the flowers, there's some candles and the blood on the pavement, and then there's a big, like a piece of paper where somebody has written, was a true Democrat murdered? And somebody had taken this photo and poured water on it so that the colors had dissolved, so it looks like there's been blood running across this photo. And then they took this photo and stuffed it underneath my bathtub. Also, in the same days when this happened, my motorbike was moved 3 times, about 50 meters, 100 meters down the road. Not stolen, it was just moved. And I got the message. When I started comparing to what had happened to other people, I totally understood that they had been in there just showing that they could get me at any time, that I should back off. And at that time, I thought, this is more than enough. 2 people dead, me being threatened. I don't want to become part of statistics. So I decided to leave Stockholm there and then. And thank God my girlfriend and sweetheart, she was very much up to leaving Sweden as well. So we took her 2 children, they were 5 years at the time, and we left. And within two months after this happened, we were in Spain, living in Spain, and started our life from absolute scratch, no money, no nothing, in a totally new country. So it's been a high price to pay, but I've been very happy to do it, even though at this point I've done hundreds of interviews the last few years, and I've been part of exposing some of the worst serial killers in modern times, exposing them so to stop them. I also believe I humbly believe that I've been part of stopping some false flag massacres that was planned and so on. So I'm still on a daily basis being in a situation where things could go very bad. At the same time, my intention is deep from my heart that what I want to accomplish with this is not to hit back in hatred or anger or in a violent way, but I'm here to see if I can by exposing the truth, be part of creating a new, beautiful world for all of us, built on compassion and forgiveness and all of these things. But to get to this place, we need to expose these very dark forces and these very dark agendas that are being hidden from our eyes. And so this is my intention, and this is what I'm gonna do until I stop breathing, I think. I won't stop until there's total ceasefire everywhere, and that we live in a beautiful world with equal for all of us and in total balance. Some people, like I have a friend in the CIA who said that sounds just like a speech from Miss America. May so be, but this is still what I want to. And I know Bob Marley said it, he put it very beautifully. He said, "I'm just a simple man with a very simple wish. I just want to unite mankind." And I feel totally the same. If I can be part of that, that is well worth risking my life for that.
Ollie, thank you for your time today, and of course documenting these events and bringing your book to the public view.
It's my absolute pleasure, Richard, and thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really looking forward to be back.
If you're interested in purchasing the Ole Dammegard book, Coup d'Etat in Slow Motion, it's available on our online store on the New Dimensions TV website. The details are on the screen now. Thanks for your time today. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode of New Dimensions TV.